Hi, everyone. I'm Cortney Renton. I'm the Executive Director of Proofing Station, and we are here today at Sola Gratia Farm. We are so excited to have recently made an investment in the farm, and we've been able to take a farm tour today, visit the fields and the facilities, and now we are lucky to be having a discussion with Traci, the Director of Sola Gratia Farm. So Traci, thank you for having us, and could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about the mission of the farm?
Sure. Traci Barkley, I'm director of Sola Gratia Farm. I've been with the farm for 12 years now. Sola Gratia really was started to address food insecurity back in 2012. Our current mission is to make healthy food accessible for all by nurturing productive land and supporting inclusive, diverse communities. So that's a lot of words to say that we are doing our best to follow regenerative organic practices to grow good food, make it available to folks with limited means, and to build community all the while.
Can you talk a little bit about the history of this farm and leading up to its recent expansion and where we're sitting now?
Sure. So we were started by St. Matthew Lutheran Church in partnership with Faith in Place. So St. Matt's had 4 acres of land that was in corn and beans production that every year the money raised off that land was given to a World Hunger Relief Fund. So the church had a long history of caring for people in need and was supporting through that farmland. We had an individual from Faith in Place who was sharing office space at St. Matt's and was really impressed by the ministry to address hunger by the church, but was also acutely aware that Champaign-Urbana had a serious food insecurity issue, and started talking to the church leaders about what would happen if you were growing real food for real people in your own community. And so that started this idea of turning that 4 acres into a community farm. And after some discussion and realizing that there was a lot of opportunity there and a lot of support within the congregation, they started Sola Gratia Farm back in 2012. Mm-hmm. So that was meager beginnings with just a couple acres, 1 farm manager, a lot of volunteer help, 1 greenhouse, a few donors, and really got the farm off the ground in a very earnest way. Over time, we've added acres, we've added staff members, we've diversified our crop production plan. We're giving through so many different outlets. So we started with 1 food bank, and now we're serving 15, 20 different partners in our community. And so now here we're sitting on land that we now own, 29 acres, a multi-use building, 2 greenhouses, a couple of high tunnels, and all of that's really been made possible because people believed in serving others in our community.
I want to pick up on something you just said about that you now own this land. I know when we were walking around earlier, you talked about trees you planted and that they were going to be fruiting a few years from now. Can you talk about what it means to own this land, know you have that access for years to come, and what that allows you to do and plan for?
This has been a long time coming. We, for the first 10 years of the farm, even more, we're on leased land, but believe very much in the organic regenerative practices, both for short and long-term returns. But, on leased land, you're not ever sure that you're going to get a return on your investment, which kept us from ever planting perennial crops. Now that we own land, not only does that mean that all the investment that we're making in building the soil and keeping water on the land and providing habitat and pollinator support, all of those things that give us short-term value, both on the neighborhood, farm, environment level. It also means that we are going to have a productive farm for many years to come. And the perennial piece is huge because whether it's working with people at the farmer's market or insecure neighbors, when we ask them what we could grow that we're not already growing, it's always fruit.
Yeah.
So we grow 50 different kinds of vegetables, 125 different kinds. We grow almost every vegetable that you can in this zone, but the fruit and even the nut piece is going to be awesome for who we're serving. So far we've planted several hundred trees. I think it's like a dozen different apple varieties, 3 different pear varieties, hazelnuts, several berries. When it's all said and done, we have a 5-year plan. We'll have 1,200 trees that we'll plant, both in intercropping with our annual vegetables, but also in our windbreak.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of trees to put in. And that means the world, because that means we're putting down roots for, fruits that will come many years down the road. And that just is an investment in our community.
One of the things that's important to Proofing Station is investing in the Midwest food system and growing food for people, which is obviously core to Sola Gratia's mission too. I know there are many things that make this farm unique, especially in the context of Central Illinois. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why what you're doing here is so different and special?
So there's a couple of things that make us unusual. One, we're a ministry of St. Matthew Lutheran Church. We are a not-for-profit farm. We are an urban farm. We grow specialty crops. We follow organic practices. All of that adds up to being pretty unique. The not-for-profit piece is really important to us because that means not only are we growing food, the production piece is important, but we also believe strongly in teaching and training the next generation of farmers, also the next generation of eaters. So there's a wide variety of foods that you can enjoy from our growing zone, and the average diet is pretty narrow, and the average health condition is pretty poor, and there's a lot of opportunity to be moving the needle in terms of individual, family, community health. So our farm is different in that when we are working in the field on the production farm or on our education demonstration farm, we're really thinking about not only the production piece and how we're going to be using the same soil 5-10 years down the road, but also who's coming to visit and what are they going to take away from the practice. So we have a lot more signage on a farm than you might see at other places. We host a lot of tours. We have more staff that is geared towards and comfortable with talking to members of the public or being comfortable with a tour group coming through or having a field day. There's also unique things because of the scale of our farm. A farm from 1948 is an extreme value to us, and maybe that only costs $12,000, but that is invaluable to us in terms of what that small, well-designed tractor can do for a farm like ours. We also design a lot of our production and education spaces for volunteers. We do have a diversified staff here on the farm, but volunteers are an important part of our culture. And not only does that allow for more people to fold into our mission, and help make a difference in their own community, it's a way of building community. It allows for us to transfer more food production skills. We have a lot of people that are retired that come, and this is where they get their sunshine and their exercise and make friends. And that just translates into so many more people in our community that are aware of the food insecurity and nutrition security problem. They're part of the solution. And in a lot of ways, when the going gets tough, it's those folks that lift us up and, help us keep doing what we're doing.
So we're sitting in this amazing barn that was recently built. This is an incredible piece of physical infrastructure, which I know takes a lot of effort and funding to build. Can you talk more about why this infrastructure was so important for the farm and also the journey of funding it?
Little by little, piece by piece, the farm grew from the original 4 acres. We started with 4 acres, a converted shed, a greenhouse, eventually put in a well. But over the years, we've only been able to invest in one small piece at a time. And what's been hard about that is every time we added to one area, which might be another tractor or implement for cultivation, then we would have more produce coming out of the field, but our wash pack was not really large enough for then what was coming out. So then we'd invest in a wash pack, and then all of a sudden our market truck is too small for the market work. We pull on one thread and it would just transfer to other threads, and we never had the opportunity to think 5 years, 10 years down the road. It was really like a year or two at a time. So by having the opportunity to buy this land and think through where do we want to be in 20 years and have the support of proofing station through very favorable loan, also through donors and some grants, we could all of a sudden, really think big and think about building in sustainability and efficiencies and building out parts of the farm that we'd never really had the opportunity to think or support. So that's been huge, also a little scary.
Yeah, I know a lot of nonprofits don't necessarily think about financing or, ways to use capital beyond grants and philanthropy. What has it been like as an organization to take that leap and think about partnering with an organization like Proofing Station and taking on debt as a tool for growth?
So for us, we had so many good conversations with not only our board, but our major partners. We did a lot of evaluation of the market space and it was really an opportunity to dig deep in our identity and our mission, and were there parts of the mission that were underserved that we had an opportunity now to grow into. The farm had never taken on debt before, and we'd been very careful with every single penny.
Yeah.
So it was a big conversation of what it would look like to take on debt. And, farming, there's so many variables we can't control. So that was also a big piece of not knowing, were we going to have a year with a late frost, or were we going to have a pest up? Like our opportunity to make money over the years has really been from the farm, with some donations, with some grants. But again, all of that is really, nothing's promised.
Yeah.
So I think we started talking to one of the supporting partners of Proofing Station years ago about this idea with the dream of Proofing Station, which was, what if foundations took the money that is regularly invested, and instead of investing kind of outside of the region or outside of the kind of grantee pool, what if you were investing in the grantees and their next step of growth? And that sounded, I'm a banker's daughter, that sounded like a great idea of investing in what you already knew, what foundations already knew that they wanted to support, what they believed in. And I really had a lot of hope at that point that we could be one of those, just knowing that our day was going to come when we were going to need some investment. So having a lender like Proofing Station who believes in the work we're doing, is made up of foundations that have always believed in the work that we and other not-for-profits are doing, feels really good, especially when things are, rocky or unpredictable. Just knowing that we have a lender that believes in the work we're doing, understands that it's variable, and that we can have an open door about like what's working, what's not working. Yeah, it's been tremendous.
So Traci, you just mentioned that there are moments of uncertainty that come along, and now is certainly one for a lot of American farmers. Can you talk a little bit about how that's impacting Sola Gratia Farm, some of the ways that you're thinking about pivoting and planning ahead, just what the last sort of year has been like for you?
I think the farming is not for the faint of heart ever, because there are so many variables you can't control. One important thing to understand about especially crop farmers is that we lack access to crop insurance. We don't have subsidies for our crops. So there's our insurance is built in diversity. So we grow 50 different kinds of vegetables, 125 different kinds. And, we might have a pest that wipes something out, or a disease or whatever. But I've always said that our wealth is in our soil and is in our people. And so that's what keeps us. That's why we keep building those relationships with people. That's why we keep building our soil with conservation practices, because there are so many things that on any good day or year we can't control. Now it's gotten even harder. I mean, I will just back up kind of big picture wise. Climate change is huge right now. So late frost, early frost. We had a hailstorm that wiped out 70% of our crops back in July a couple of years ago.
Wow.
We've had flooding, we've had drought, we've had air quality problems, we've had extreme heat indexes. That's that all makes it very difficult to grow food in any location. But that's something that we constantly have to work within.
Yeah.
Then for a farm like ours, we have a diversified portfolio of where our income comes from. And so just sales-wise, we have a CSA program where, a couple hundred people have veggie subscriptions with us. We're at markets, we're at wholesale. We have events, we have grants, we have donors. All of that takes work. But the reason we have such a diverse portfolio for our income is because, again, like depending on the year or the stock market or state or federal policies, that really can ebb and flow. Same thing, markets, few bad Saturdays in a row of weather and we've lost a lot of income, or COVID showed us how vulnerable restaurants are, and so wholesale was really tricky. So there's so many things that we're navigating, and in this moment when we're seeing lack of federal support for USDA programming, that results in drying up of grants like that support our farm to school program, but that also supports our conservation practices. It also supports the staff members that we lean on for supporting us in understanding, conservation practices or how to navigate marketing of different specialty crops. So there's a lot that's built into both state and federal systems that, until it's gone, people don't realize how useful they are and how important they are. And especially for a farm like ours, I'm really grateful that we have the relationships we have with peer farmers, other not-for-profit organizations, our local government, our lenders. Like, it's those relationships and that network that we're really leaning on right now in times of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. You just talked about this network that you're a part of and these relationships. You're a farm, but you're obviously so much more than a farm. You've mentioned farm to school. You've mentioned your food insecurity work. I know that Sola Gratia has such a big impact, sort of including but beyond the food that you grow. Can you talk more about what some of those other programs and policy work are that you and your team are engaged in?
Sure. So outreach education-wise, that's been an important part from the beginning. So that's, offering day camps on the farm for kids through our local farm bureau or park district programs. We have, when asked in years past, worked with preschool programs and elementary schools and junior high. I think we started seeing the value of working with kids and just showing the magic of planting a seed, or like playing in the soil, or learning how to make salad, or there's so many different things that are tactile experiences and that just open up doors for kids. So when we started seeing how valuable it was, and also realized that our local public health district was interested in farm to school, we started a district-wide farm to school program back in 2020. And since then, over the last 5 years, we've put in gardens at every school. There's curriculum kits that through K through 5 and then 6 through 8 that allow for teachers to check out kits for farm to school programming. We've worked through cutting through the red tape to get farms like ours to be able to sell into the school district for school lunch and snack programs. All of that we've done in a way that, one, is replicable, so other school districts can work on. Also opens up doors for other farms to partner with schools. But maybe most importantly is through an equity lens. Our school district has a very diverse population, and kids that are, there's always been some farm to school programming, but often it's because there's a teacher who has a green thumb, or likes to plant seeds on the windowsill or something, and not every kid gets that opportunity. So we really wanted, from kindergarten all the way through high school, for kids every single year to either have a field trip to a farm, or have a lesson, or have time with their school garden, or eat something local through school lunch programs. So it's been slow, difficult work to build. There was such a strong foundation, but now there's a farm to school coordinator in place and garden coordinators at every single school. So it's now a program that's been really turned over to the school district and is just supported by Sola and public health. So that's, for us, moves the needle in terms of community food and nutrition security, because that's a whole generation that's going to be getting better support in eating well. We also are part of what's called Solidarity Gardens. It's a community gardening program, which is really a network of community gardens that it's us in partnership with our local park district, our local library, our local township office. And we work to coordinate access to garden space, plants, seeds, technical support, volunteers. It's really a way to get more people growing good, healthy food in our community. And then we are one of 3 spots where you can drop off that produce. So it's like empowering more gardeners to grow food and share with those in need. So our farm has a community cooler that's open 7 days a week, really 24 hours a day. I don't think we've got any middle of the night drop-offs, but when people have extra anything, they can drop off there, and then we turn it into donations to our food bank or our food pantries, soup kitchen. And then we just turned our original 4 acres into an education demonstration farm, and so we have a 4-year plan there, but we're demonstrating many different ways of growing food. We are hosting open houses. We have signage that invites people to learn and enjoy more about gardening. And we'll do, last year I think it was like 80 plus different groups come through the farm, and we just expect that to grow. So it's a way for more people to learn more about growing food. Finally, policy-wise, we care a lot about local, state, and federal policy, and feel like it's important for our staff when we have knowledge to share about the importance of the SNAP program or Farm Bill that recognizes crop insurance or supporting beginning farmers, or there's so many different things that we are living examples of what works or what doesn't work. And so when we can use our voice and also empower our membership and our partners to be part of the solution and let our lawmakers know what's needed, because ultimately we're all eaters. And there's a lot working against farmers right now, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to be supporting a better farming infrastructure. So we use our voices when we can, whether it's in Springfield or DC. All right, Cortney, I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Could you share, why does Proofing Station choose to invest in access to land and real assets and advancing sustainable cultivation?
Great question. Proofing Station has 4 focus areas. Those are 2 of them. And all of our 4 focus areas were really determined through research of the region and understanding what barriers were existing to promoting and advancing equitable, sustainable agriculture and food systems in the region. So we know that securing access to land and real assets, infrastructure like we're sitting in, is a major barrier, both in terms of cost, availability of land for folks who are new and beginning farmers and don't have access to land within their families. That's a major, major barrier. So that's a very important one for us, and one that's difficult to fund. And then same with sustainable cultivation, especially we're sitting in Champaign-Urbana. We are in Illinois and Iowa and Indiana. The I-states were really known for large-scale commodity agriculture, but not necessarily agriculture that feeds a lot of people. And so we're very interested in more sustainable practices that are not only good for land, but also good for community and growing food for people. And so that's why being here at Sola Gratia is so exciting, to see food being grown, diverse food that is grown for your neighbors, for promoting health and nutrition right here in your community. And so those are 2 of our main focus areas, and really 2 of the reasons why we were so excited to learn more and invest in Sola Gratia, because what you're doing is really tackling 2 of the most persistent barriers that we're seeing in the region.
Cortney, how does Proofing Station think about its own investments for groups that are curious if Proofing Station might be a good fit?
So I think there's a couple of things that are unique about Proofing Station. One, we're a nonprofit ourselves, and so we have to meet our charitable purpose. When we say we're impact first, we really mean it. That's built into our structure as a 501c3 nonprofit. So as we get to know businesses that are interested in our funding and applying for our funding, we really look at the impact first and make sure that what that business or nonprofit is doing is aligned with our 4 focus areas and our our charitable purpose. We also have an open intake form on our website, so our goal is to be very accessible. There's a lot of times really hard to get in touch with funders, or funds can be kind of mysterious. We try to be quite open and transparent about who we are, what our funding criteria are, what we're looking for, our decision-making process as much as we can. We've learned a lot over the last 2 years as we've grown, kind of gotten out of startup mode and into more of a rhythm about how we can be better about communicating that information out. But we have a lot of information on our website about our criteria that we would encourage folks to check out. And then really it's kind of conversations and getting to know each other. So we ask for some preliminary information on the intake form on our website, and then you start talking to our team. We have a small but mighty team and a lot of folks who have expertise in the food system, which I think is also different than some typical lenders. You know, we have a lot of farmers and food businesses and infrastructure projects who reach out to us who sometimes say, I've talked to my local bank and they just don't get what we're doing, or they don't get regenerative agriculture, or they don't know how to underwrite us. And so that's really our reason for being. We're really intended to be what we call a gap filler fund, and to fund projects and businesses that are otherwise maybe struggling to get more traditional financing. And that can be for a variety of reasons. But that's really our purpose, is to sort of bring flexible, creative structures, impact first perspective, and then really a deep understanding of the regional food system to be able to put that catalytic funding out there and be able to support these projects that are really necessary for the health of the region overall.
Does the not-for-profit model allow for Proofing Station to take some non-traditional risks?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Proofing Station is structured as a nonprofit, which allows us to do a few things and to take more risk than a traditional lender might, especially in the field of agriculture. So when we were doing our initial research about what was needed in the system, one thing was flexibility. So there are a lot of funds out there that exist who maybe only offer one type of product. They only do loans, they only do equity, they're at a fixed rate. We don't do that. So we can actually do a little bit of everything. We can do debt, we can do equity, we can do credit enhancements. We intentionally kept our structure quite open and flexible so that we could really meet the needs of each deal as we were doing it and create a custom term sheet for each deal. And that's really part of our mission of serving a variety of different types of organizations and entities within the food system. Mm-hmm. We also, you mentioned some of our funders who have been familiar with the Midwest food system for years. So our mandate is principal preservation and return of capital, which really just means that we're not facing the same kind of pressure to generate high returns on behalf of our investors. What we're looking for is solid businesses that are necessary for the system, that are doing good work, that are viable business operations, but they might not be unicorns. They might not be out there kind of able to work with traditional impact investors or lenders who are expecting high returns. That structure allows us to offer more favorable interest rates to our borrowers. That is a better fit for what they need, given the cash flow maybe of their business. Also understanding that farming is an incredibly seasonal business, right? And so we're able to do things by really sitting down and kind of understanding the financial needs of each business. Can we structure your repayments differently to meet the seasonality of your farming needs? We're just able, I think, to be a lot more kind of personalized in our approach to each investment in a way that we have heard from our borrowers is unique. It might take a little bit more time on the front end, but we hope is really filling a need and a gap that wasn't there before with the kind of traditional lending landscape.
Can you tell me more about what it means to be a demonstration fund?
Sure. So Proofing Station was really founded, again, this is unique to our structure as a nonprofit. Our hope is also to really prove out, hence the name Proofing Station, that our structure works, that our portfolio enterprises are investable, viable businesses, and ultimately to attract more capital into the Midwest region and into funds like ours. We really want to attract more capital into the Midwest overall. Obviously, this region is an agricultural powerhouse. There are similar funds that have kind of started on the coasts in California and New England. We're starting to see more in the Midwest, but it's still pretty heavily undercapitalized compared to some of our other regional counterparts. And I think especially as California has been increasingly threatened by climate change. There's more attention being placed on the Midwest as the region that is going to feed our country and the world. And so we want to be demonstrating that this model works, period, but also that it works here in this region so that we can be getting more funders, more funds like ours popping up so that we can ultimately support more businesses like Sola Gratia who are in need of this kind of flexible, integrated catalytic capital, but that it's difficult to find and access otherwise. So along those lines, Traci, I'd love to ask you, for other farmers, food businesses, nonprofit organizations in the food space that are thinking about talking to Proofing Station or just considering different types of investment to support their growth, do you have any advice about how they should be considering that opportunity?
First of all, it's really important to talk to other farmers and other links in the farming chain, processors, distributors. And there's so many links, and ultimately for something to work, it needs to be a good fit and connected to different links in the regional food infrastructure. So first, I think it's important to make sure that you're designing your infrastructure, whether it's a building or more transportation or processing facility, whatever, that it is well designed, that you've anticipated the growth that you're going to need, that you've built in efficiencies, and you've talked to other folks about what they learned from their own investments, what they would do, what they wouldn't do. And then really, I think talking to Proofing Station taught us a lot about scaling our operation, the time frame that we needed to work within. Internally, we needed to go through some different evaluations that we hadn't when we were thinking in shorter terms, and we weren't in such a growth trajectory. So I guess the short advice is talk to other farmers, talk to other links in the chain, be open to a longer time frame than what you might anticipate, because I know for us, for our process of expansion, one, we're in city limits, so it took a lot longer in terms of permitting, but it took longer than we expected, and I'm glad we didn't rush it because we ended up with exactly what we needed. We didn't rush it, and it was well informed. So I'm really pleased with where we're at. But if you would ask me 3 years ago how long it would take, I would have told you 1 year as opposed to the 3 years that it really took. And then just being absolutely open and honest and somewhat vulnerable and talking to lenders is really important, because it's trust on both sides. And I think we learned a lot in that process because we were open to understanding what we didn't know, what we needed to know.
Traci, I know that you have all kinds of volunteers and community support and people engaged in the farm. If people want to learn more, what's the best way for them to get engaged and to reach out to Sola Gratia?
What's interesting about Sola is that we are a very diverse operation, and people come to us in different ways. So I am so proud of the fact that we're a true community farm, and that there's lots of ways to get involved and plug in your time and talents. And it could be shopping from us at market. It could be joining our CSA program. It could be volunteering, coming to a special event. There's really a lot of ways to get involved. And ultimately, I think when you connect people around food, that's just one fun. And there's a lot of ways to celebrate and nourish ourselves and each other through food. So I would say show up, get on our websites, come visit the farm. There's really a place for everyone, and it could be in a way that you didn't necessarily expect. Cortney, if someone is interested in learning more about Proofing Station, where do they begin?
Yeah, you can come to our website. So proofingstation.org is a great place to start. We have information about all of our portfolio enterprises. You can learn more about Sola Gratia and our other portfolio enterprises. You can also see our investment considerations if you're coming to learn more about potentially seeking an investment. We list out our criteria, our impact criteria, what we're looking for, and then you can also reach out to our team. You'll get a hold of me, and we can start a conversation that way too. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation and getting to know Sola Gratia Farm. We're so grateful to Traci and her team for having us today, and we're excited for you to learn more and stay engaged.